Does AI worry you?
No.
I was going to say, would it be a different answer from the writer versus the forensic anthropologist? But you're saying no, it doesn't worry you.
It just doesn't worry me.
No, eh?
The library was my space, and there was just so much.
To the Harbor Grace excursion with the boys to have a time.
It's so great to meet you, Kathy. I'm so honored and so excited about our conversation tonight.
Oh, I'm excited to meet you too.
I thought I'd have to call her Dr. Reichs, but she said I could call her Kathy.
Yes,
so.
please.
Before we talk about your new novel, Fire and Bones, which just came out this week, let's talk a little bit about your heroine or hero, Temperance Brennan. Is she based on you? I mean, or is the choice of career where the similarities end?
She is based on me professionally. Okay. Are we okay with the sound? She works in a medical legal lab. I work in a medical legal lab. She's a forensic anthropologist. I'm a forensic anthropologist. But there, the similarity ends.
Okay.
Her social life is all her own. I'm married. I've been married since I was born. I've got 3 kids. She's single. She has a daughter. She has a daughter, right? Yeah.
Yeah, she does.
Yeah, she has a daughter.
Katie.
We share the same sense of humor, I think. She's a bit sarcastic, wry in her sense of humor, but otherwise she's her own person. She's a non-drinker.
Yeah.
If you ask my friends, they will tell you that is definitely not me.
That's really interesting because I was researching you a little bit and I read on, I think, Wikipedia, which can't be trusted, that
What?
the character...
Everything on Wikipedia is not true?
Well, you tell me. So they said the character Bones in the TV show that's based on your books, that the character Temperance Brennan was based on you, but you're saying that's not the case.
It's based partly on me and partly on the character in my books.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Fair.
And then partly just stuff we made up.
That's the great thing about fiction is you just get to make it up.
To make it up.
I
yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
I love that. So what is it, though, do you think, that makes her such a beloved character?
Oh, gosh. She's not perfect. Mm-hmm. She's got flaws. But she's committed to her work. She has a real dedication to the dead, to getting justice for them, getting them identified if they're unidentified. I think she has a good sense of humor, especially about herself.
Mm-hmm. I found that she definitely has quite a commitment to the truth, and that comes through in the novels, and I think that makes her very sympathetic. I mean, in Fire and Bones, she gives up a vacation with her boyfriend to get to the bottom of a crime.
Yeah, that happens to her a lot.
A
She
lot.
and Ryan, they're always planning these trips, and it just never works out.
But you've got to admire that. That's something that makes her very likable,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I love about her is her sense of humor, like her little asides to herself, and the interesting way that she observes the world and the way she interacts with other people, her daughter, her boyfriend, her colleagues. I just find she's a very fun character.
Yeah, and it's fun writing those bits, and I put the humor in, and we do that in the show too. Mm-hmm. You know, that's partly why I went with the executive producers that I did. Is there's humor in my books, and there's humor in the show, and that takes a delicate touch because every book and every episode deals with violent deaths. So how do you make it funny?
Yeah, it's a fine line to walk, but you do it really well.
Thank you, and our writers on the show were fantastic at that.
Yeah, the humor works really well in the books because they're dark subjects.
They're dark. It's dark. Somebody gets killed. You know, in every single book, there's a dead person. So.
Or more.
Or more.
There's many dead people. So let's talk about the new novel for a bit. We don't want to give away any spoilers, but tell us a bit about Fire and Bones.
Fire and Bones is set in Washington, D.C. This is the first time I've used that setting. I always pick a place I know well, or I go there to research, which was the book set in Hawaii. It was a really tough sell to my department chair that I don't want to go, but I've got to go out there. So it's in Washington, D.C. It starts out in a neighborhood called Foggy Bottom, and I just love that name. I wanted to call the book like Foggy Bottom Bones, and my publisher said, no.
Oh, that's a great title.
I liked it.
Who likes that title? I love that title.
What could be
Foggy.
bad about Foggy Bottom?
Yeah.
Anyway, and I read a book about a group called the Foggy Bottom Gang, which was in the 30s into the 50s. They were like Al Capone in Chicago. They controlled it was illegal prohibition in the States. They controlled illegal booze and distribution of illegal booze, and then when that became legal, they went into gambling. Anyway, it was this trio of three brothers that were called the Foggy Bottom Gang, and I found them interesting. So the story starts out with a fire in Foggy Bottom in a very old house, and Tempe is asked to help. There are 4 known people in there to help recover and identify these victims. But then one of the firemen falls through the floor into a basement, into a sub-basement, which isn't on any of the plans for this building. And down there they find this tiny little woman. And Tempe becomes very interested. Who is this? And how long has she been down there? And what's she doing?
In a burlap sack.
In a burlap sack.
I totally love the burlap sack research.
I had no idea.
When you read this book about the burlap sack research.
Yeah, who knew? There are people who collect them.
Whose lives revolve around
burlap sacks. Yeah. So called a guy at a burlap sack factory, of which there is one in North Carolina, so that was handy. He was stunned. It's like no one had ever wanted to know anything about burlap sacks.
He was stunned and delighted.
And delighted,
He was
yes.
delighted. So is this based on real? Like did you call it burlap sack?
I called the burlap sack guy.
Wow. That's
He knew a lot
About
about
burlap
burlap sacks.
Wow, I didn't think that was real, so that's interesting. So how did this story begin for you?
It began with Foggy Bottom. I just really liked the name Foggy Bottom.
So you just came across Foggy Bottom and you thought I could set crime in
I went to
Foggy-
school in Washington, D.C. as an undergrad. I went to American University, and my daughter lives and 2 of my grandkids live in Washington. I know, I don't look old enough to have grandkids, right?
You don't. You don't at all.
Okay, anyway, so I know Washington, and I have not used Washington in any of the books, so I just thought it would be a good setting for a story.
So did you start then with the setting of Foggy Bottom? You don't start with the forensic angle? How do you start a new book?
It's like vegetable soup. It's
Yeah.
like the setting idea is rolling around in my brain, and what forensic science will I use? Because in every one of the books, they're murder mysteries, but the solution is driven, at least in part, by science. So in each of the books, I want to use a different forensic science. I don't want to use bones and bones and bones and bones again. So I hadn't used fire and fire analysis, and you learn a bit about, how fires are investigated and the impact of fire on the human body, which is not
Grisly.
good.
Very grisly. Yeah.
Yeah, and so there's the setting, and then there's the plot line, and all of that kind of swirls around until I've got my core cast of characters. I've got Temperance Brennan, and I've got Andrew Ryan, and on one end I've got Skinny Slidell, and on the other hand, the Canadian end, there's Luke Claudel. But in each book, I also try to introduce new characters, and in this one, it's a journalist, which is a bit of a change for Tempe, because normally she is not very welcoming to the
I
media.
wouldn't say she was very welcoming to Ivy.
This is new.
Initially,
Oh,
yeah.
not initially, because
Not
she,
initially,
when
yeah.
you're doing a case,
Yeah.
I have found in my experience, if you're working on a case and you give a statement to the media, they almost always get it wrong, and then it comes back to haunt you.
Yeah. The fact checking isn't there as much as it should be sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
So she develops this relationship. She ends up staying in Ivy's house.
she
almost
does.
against her will,
Yes,
but it's
for various complicated reasons. Yeah.
for various complicated reasons. So you come up, you have a setting, you know you've got to weave in some forensic science. So I'm just interested, it's not always driven by, you don't start with a forensic science idea, something from your work, say.
Sometimes each book is different.
Each book is different.
Sometimes it's what we used to call in the writer's room, the Bones writer's room, ripped from the headlines.
Yeah.
I'll see something, some For example, what's an example? I won't be able to think of one. What's the book about DNA, the bone code? I saw a story, we all know now that the human genome has been completely unraveled, and scientists have the ability to modify the human genome of an individual, but there's a general agreement in the scientific community we won't do that to create designer babies, for example.
Well, the good guys won't do it, but the bad guys might.
Yeah, so I read this story, little story about a Chinese doctor who did just that. He modified the genomes of 2 unborn baby girls. And I thought, so my brain starts going, that's a great idea. Well, what if this and what if that? And what if someone did that, took that technology and that knowledge and modified genomes for nefarious purposes? So that would be an example of a ripped from the headlines origin for a story idea.
Yep. Okay. So who's in control, you or your characters?
Oh, I'm in control. I'm at the keyboard. I have the delete key.
I never thought of it that way.
Gone.
Oh, that gives you a lot of control.
Yeah, of course.
Power even.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So you don't find that your characters ever surprise you, or?
They do, but I'm still in control.
Oh, okay.
It's a good surprise.
It's an important
hadn't thought of that. Yeah, let's
Yeah.
go with that. That's a good twist. Then I'll keep it, and if not, I might wake up the next day and reread. The way I write is each chapter is a separate file. So when I start writing in the morning, I open that file at the beginning, and I read down, and I edit as I go until I get to where I left off. Mm-hmm. And then I start writing, and that brings me up to speed on, where I was, where I left off. So yeah, sometimes I'll look at something I wrote the day before and think, what were you thinking? And the delete, gone.
Yeah. So let's talk about your writing process then, beyond that. Do you outline or plan your novels first, or do you kind of figure it out as
Am I a
as you go?
pantser or a plotter?
I hate the term pantser. It sounds like your pants are falling
Do you
off.
write by the seat of your pants, or do you plot everything?
Yeah.
Are the two terms writers use. I'm more of a pantser. I will outline the first 6, 8, maybe 10 chapters, just a brief little paragraph on each. And I know where the story's going, where it's going to end. But after that, I just start writing. I do what I think of as a post-mortem outline, because as I finish each chapter, I put it into the outline. So that by the time I finish the book, I have a complete outline of what went on in each chapter. So if I need to go back and find something to delete or modify or insert.
Oh my God, that's genius.
Yeah.
That's genius. See my head whirling like this. Post-mortem sounds like a better word than revisions.
Yeah.
You know? I'm going to think of doing a post-mortem on my book
Okay.
in future. So would you say that you're a very busy woman? Obviously you're a forensic anthropologist, you write books, you do almost a book a year. Do you do a book a year roughly?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
For 25 years or so. So are you a disciplined writer where you do a certain number of words per day, or how do you do it?
I don't think in terms of words or pages. I think in terms of time block. I try to get at it by 8 or 8:30 in the morning, and then stay with it until, 1:30, 2:30 in the afternoon. And if I produce 2 good pages, I'm very slow because I edit constantly.
Okay.
So if I get 2 good pages on a day, that's a really good day.
And so that means you don't do a lot of edits at the end?
Don't do what?
Don't do a lot of edits at the end? Do you have pretty much a perfect first draft?
No. Well,
good.
after I'm about 1/3 of the way through, I'll print the whole thing out, hard copy, and I'll go through it.
Yeah.
And edit it, and then write the next third. I'll print all that out, go through it, and edit, and then I edit again at the end. Hard copy, I still do like to make notes and then enter those into the computer.
So, but my question is, when you hand in your draft to your editors, do you do a lot of revision after that, or are you pretty much home free?
I think the most I've ever spent, maybe a couple of weeks. So it's,
I'm going to start crying.
I don't do a lot of, I guess I turn it in pretty clean.
Oh. just crushed me completely.
I think it's because of the way I wrote the first book. Is I wrote it in secret. I was
Oh, me too. Yes, secret
Okay.
is great.
I didn't tell anyone I was writing it
Yes,
because I was teaching full time
Yeah.
at university, and if you write a novel in the English department, you're a hero. But if you write a novel in a science department, you're a little bit suspect. So I didn't tell anybody, and so I wrote the whole thing and edited the whole thing, and until I thought it was ready, and then like an idiot, I just mailed it in. My daughter had a friend who had a friend who had a friend who worked at a publishing house.
Okay.
So I said, well, that's what publishing house, and what does he do? Maybe he works in the snack shop or something like that. Turned out it was Mary Sue Rucci, who's now a publisher in her own right, but she was a junior editor at the time. So I wrote a cover letter, and in those days you sent the whole honkin' thing, the manuscript hard copy. So I just mailed it to Mary Sue, who is undoubtedly on the other end has heard that her friend's mother's first novel is coming her way. And she told me later that she took a couple chapters home with her from Manhattan. She was living in Brooklyn or somewhere. And thinking, already composing the thank you so very much, but this doesn't fit into our, letter. And she said she got in her car, went back into Manhattan, got the rest of the book, took it home, read it, handed it up to her senior person, and I think I had an offer within, 3 weeks or 2 weeks or something like that.
I think that's the best publishing story I've ever heard.
But it is not the way to get published. I think today.
Oh, that will never happen again, no.
I've had publishers tell me they don't even look at anything that's not represented by an agent.
Yeah.
So you really do need to have an agented piece of work.
Times have really changed. I'm going to actually skip to a different question farther down to talk about this. How have things changed since you started out, 25 years ago roughly? I mean, you could do that back then. Maybe you could do that
You
back
could do
then.
that. Well,
but it's really different now. How is...
Well, everything is, you don't do the hard copy anymore. You
No,
don't, just clunk
you
it over
would
the
never send the full thing either.
I guess not.
No.
I mean, I don't know. I was such an idiot. I didn't know what to do. So I just finished the book, and I thought, this is pretty good. And I mailed it into them. Mm-hmm. You don't do that today. You'd be represented by an agent, and it would be done electronically.
Yeah. And I think it's harder now. I think maybe
Is it?
it's harder.
Yeah, it could be. I
Yeah.
don't know.
I think it's harder. But I just think it's a tougher thing now for writers. So back to your writing in secret thing, which is one of my favorite things. Is that what you would advise people to do now, is to write in secret?
Probably not.
Oh, really?
I think there are writers' groups in every city, and I think someone who's trying to write their first novel, it's probably not a bad idea to have a group to bounce your ideas off and to let them see at least parts of it, and you can critique each other and support and motivate each other.
Okay. Back to the book. There's a lot of historical information in this novel, and I imagine as a forensic anthropologist, you have a natural interest in history. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So how do you go about researching, not just the history, but all the forensic stuff? Do you research it as you're writing your first draft? Do you research beforehand? Do you have an assistant?
Well, I do have an assistant. She does some, but not that much of the research so much. I just, once I do that brief 6 or 8 chapter, little outline thing, I just start writing. And then as I try to think ahead though, if I know I'm coming to the part about, I don't know, what temperature Fahrenheit will it take to crack a bone, I do go ahead and look into that and try to get the answer to that so that I won't be delayed when I get to that point in the writing.
Yeah. Have you ever had a problem where you go ahead and you write something and then you didn't do the research and you go back and the research doesn't work?
I've had things, the only parts of my books I let anyone read are the science bits. Okay. And I'm lucky because I'm in the forensic sciences and I have colleagues in all the different areas. So I may send them those few chapters or 1 or 2 pages that are the science explanation of whatever's going on. And sometimes they'll say, no, you can't. You can't do that. And then I can go back in and modify, and they're always willing to help, which is nice.
Yeah, oh, that's nice. So I'm interested in how you began writing. So you began as a forensic anthropologist. You're world-renowned. You've done amazing things. Did you always want to be a writer, or did you always want to be a forensic anthropologist and then the stories came out of all the interesting stuff you did as a forensic anthropologist? Or did you always also want to be a writer?
I always answered this no. I didn't want to be a writer, but not long ago I discovered in an old box, I moved, and in an old box in my attic were these 2 novels I wrote when I was like 8 years old. They're in longhand, and they're illustrated with those little colored pencils. You use.
Yeah.
I may be dating myself here, but
I had colored pencils.
one was a romance and one was a mystery. So apparently there was a time when I was quite young when I was interested, and then I forgot all about that. And when I went to university, I just took the obligatory intro to fiction, intro to poetry, but I just wanted to be over in the science labs. So I really don't have training in creative writing. I just do it by instinct. When I decided to write a book, I decided to write the kind of book I like to read.
Yeah.
And that was kind of my guidepost.
I think that's a good way to go about it, to rather than, you don't necessarily have to get trained in it. You write out of instinct, right? But when did you decide that you wanted to write a book? Your first novel, like Deja Dead was your first novel,
Deja
right?
Dead was the first book. 1994, a few things came together. I made full professor, which is the highest rank at a university, so I was free to do whatever the hell I wanted to do.
Woohoo, tenure!
Here you go, I got tenure. And then I had just worked on a serial murder case in Montreal, which had some very interesting elements to it. And I also had 3 kids talking about going to private universities, which are very expensive in the US. And I don't know if you know this, but professors are not all that well paid. So I thought, and I had a colleague who was writing, she's an anthropologist, but she was writing romance novels, Western romance novels.
Okay, I never saw this coming. I did not see this coming.
Yeah, so
Carry on.
she was writing, and they would go straight to paperback. So I got one and I read it, and I think I said, I'm going to be. I thought
Go
I could
ahead.
do. I can do
Be
this.
frank.
I can do this. I can do
Yeah.
this. So I decided I would give it a shot.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
For some reason, I thought that, your writing came out of some really fascinating forensic case, and you were just inspired to write this. So it's so refreshing.
Well, I
to hear
did.
that-
It partly
Yeah,
was
partly,
based on
yeah.
this case in Montreal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's so interesting. So how did you balance your work? I mean, you made full professor. You had 3 kids. Obviously, you're someone who can do a lot at once. How did you balance the writing of fiction with being a forensic anthropologist? Like they use different sides of the brain, right? Obviously, you're a
Yeah.
scientist. Obviously, you're also a very creative person. Was there any struggle with that, or?
It's funny. I testified in court right after Deja Dead came out, and we talked about, are they going to bring that up? Oh, Dr. Reichs, is this fiction or is this fact?
Yeah.
You know how opposing counsel
Oh, yeah, I hadn't
be.
even thought about that.
So I walked into the courtroom, got sworn in, sat down, and underneath the opposing counsel's desk was a copy of Deja Dead. So I thought, here we go. He never brought it up, he never mentioned it, and after the trial that day, he just wanted me to sign his copy.
Oh, that's fantastic.
It was pretty funny, yeah.
I just want to mention something here that I find hilarious, is that in the books, Temperance Brennan writes a series about a forensic anthropologist, about a character called Kathy Reichs.
In the show.
In the show,
Yeah.
in Bones.
Yeah, that was our Hart Hansen, who's Canadian, who is our showrunner and executive producer. That was his idea to
Oh,
do
that's clever.
this flip around that Temperance Brennan writes novels about a fictional anthropologist named Kathy Reichs. So
I think
we did a number of
that's
episodes
hilarious.
on that,
That's very
on the
funny.
books.
So which do you like better? Do you like working in the lab as a forensic anthropologist? Do you like teaching that, or do you like writing fiction better? Or
I like having that mix. I like
Yeah.
being able to, and I've liked that my career moved from, you know, academia into the world of working in crime labs, and then from that into commercial fiction, and from that into production of television. I really like to be able to move into all of those different worlds, as we would call them in the writer's room on Bones.
Yeah. Oh, you've had a very interesting life. So we talked a bit about what has changed since you started writing your books, since you published your first book. What has changed in forensic anthropology since you started and to now? Like, there must have been massive changes.
Oh, the big gorilla in the room is DNA, of course. We didn't have DNA back when we had DNA, obviously. We had DNA. But the forensic value of that hadn't been recognized, and that has become such a powerful tool now. The DNA section at the lab in Montreal took over like an entire floor of the building, the Partenay building where the medical legal lab is located. So that's one of the big developments.
And that was probably, what, late 80s the DNA got so big?
Oh, I think it was in the
earlier?
90s. I think
Or
it was,
90s.
I think we were into the 90s, like,
Yeah.
mid.
So is that, you know, if you're a forensic anthropologist and you're studying bones and you're trying to figure out the identity of a dead person, is it mostly DNA work now that's done?
No, because you can't always get DNA.
Oh, okay.
You know, if the remains are degraded enough, you may not get, or in a fire, for example. You can from burned remains, but you may not also. So DNA doesn't work. And also, you couldn't use it in a vacuum. Okay, I got DNA from these remains. What do I compare it to?
Exactly, yeah.
You've got to have a name. You know, John Doe, we think this could be John Doe, so that you can go to his family, or, you know, for something to compare it to. DNA's gone a bit beyond just comparative now, but that's still a big
It's
part.
so interesting now, the whole genome, you know, what do they call
Human
it?
Genome Project?
Yes,
Yeah.
where you track relatives through ancestry.
Oh, genetic genealogy, forensic genetic genealogy,
Yeah, that probably has nothing to do with.
That's the big new
Is
development.
that part of forensic anthropology too? Really?
Yeah,
Oh, interesting.
or forensic analysis, I don't know.
Yeah.
We could claim it as ours in anthropology, but.
And other than DNA, is there any big advances in forensic anthropology that you've seen happen through the last couple of decades that?
Don't ask me that. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm sure there are. You know, it's
Sorry.
just like everything else. The technology gets better, the microscopes get better, the saws that you use for autopsy. We don't use a lot of high tech. We don't use scanning electron microscopy and gas chromatography. And, you know, you might have a sample that you send over there for some reason in an individual case, but that kind of really high tech stuff is not standard in our analysis.
I think sometimes with shows we think that everything high tech and all the testing being done is the norm, but the budget reality is
Exactly.
that and I think this is handy when you're writing fiction, is you just say, oh, we don't have the budget for that test.
Which is
And that-
probably true. You know,
Well, it's probably true, and then you don't solve the crime.
You see the Jeffersonian and the forensic platform where Tempe works, and everything's real on there. All that equipment is real, but could any crime lab afford all of that? Probably not.
Yeah, that's so true. So you wrote a standalone in 2017 called Two Nights. Is that your only standalone? Is that?
It's the only standalone. The other series I did is called The Virals.
Yes, I remember reading that.
The
with my
Viral series.
child.
It's a young
Yes.
adult series. My son graduated law school, practiced law for about 2 years, hated it.
Oh, I can get behind that. Yeah.
Came to me and said, why don't we do a young adult series? So we did.
Yeah.
We did 6 books. It's Temperance Brennan's 14-year-old niece, great niece actually, named Tori Brennan, and her friends, who are all, her 3 best friends are boys. And they solve crimes, I guess, at that level, at high school, middle school level. But kids were really liking, I think they still do, some element of superpower kind of thing. And we didn't want to do zombies, and we didn't want to do witches or anything like that. So what happens to these kids in the first book is, and that's why it's called the Virals series, they rescue this dog from a veterinary research facility. They steal the dog from the veterinary research facility.
They're kids.
They're kids. And unbeknownst to them, the dog has been the subject of parvovirus experimentation. Parvovirus is a virus that dogs can get. There's nothing you can do for them except hydrate them. They either live or they don't. They have a 50-50 chance. But it's not transmissible to humans. Well, what the kids don't know is the DNA of this virus has been modified. So it can now transfer to humans. So the kids get sick, they get better, but when they get better, they notice that their sensory perception abilities have been changed. They can hear like a wolf, they can smell if anyone is afraid or if they're lying. In other words, they have these sensory capabilities like a wolf or a dog. So the premise of this, so they call themselves the virals. They can't tell anybody else about these special powers, or somebody might want to research them. Anyway, so they use those powers and just intelligence to solve mysteries and things. That's the Virals series.
Did you enjoy writing that? YA?
We had a lot of fun. My son, not every moment.
Yeah.
My son is, my son was a lawyer. He was a litigator, so he's very good at arguing. But we were good at taking off the mom and son hat and putting on the co-author hat. And then he dumped me, and he went on and he wrote a young adult series that skews older. It's called Nemesis, Genesis, Crystallis. It's a 3-book series. And then he wrote one that skews younger, like middle grade, called The Dark Deep. And now I don't know what he's doing. He's writing adult books, I think.
Do you still talk to him?
Here's something really scary. I live in a fairly remote neighborhood. And my daughter bought the house that's just the cul-de-sac. So our backyards actually conjoin in the back. Then my son bought the house whose property joins hers. So 2 of my kids live within literally 5 minutes of me.
Did they ask you, or did they just...
They did not. They just moved in.
Huh. I don't think I like that.
Well, they're in their own houses,
Yeah.
so. But.
So you've done these other things. You've written with your son. You've done a standalone. So what direction are you going to head in? Are you going to be doing a lot more Temperance Brennan, or?
I'm currently working on book number 24, which is going to, if I ever get home from book tour, but and it's going to take a look at evil. It'll have evil in the title. And
Evil bones.
Evil, maybe, yeah. Evil in the bones, bones of evil, and anyway, it's going to take a look at what is evil, what rises to the level of being so abhorrent that we really consider it an evil act.
That's a very interesting subject.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Tell us a bit about working on Bones, the TV show. I'm sure we're all curious about that. It did 12 seasons.
We did.
On Fox. It was very popular.
We're still the longest running scripted drama in the history of Fox.
Wow. Okay. So probably a lot of fans here. Tell us what it was like working in TV. What was your role on the show?
I was a producer, whatever that means. We actually did one episode where Penny Marshall was on. I forget why. Tempe had written a book, the books that she writes about Kathy Reichs, the anthropologist, and she's being interviewed by Penny Marshall, and she says, well, what does a producer do? And Penny Marshall says, nobody knows what a producer does. But mainly I worked with the writers. I read every one of our 246 scripts, and I would give them input, mainly on the science, to keep it plausible. We did push the envelope for the magic of television, but we did, keep it plausible and keep it reasonably true. And then I would write episodes. I wrote some episodes with my daughter, which was fun.
Oh, so you did the screenwriting with the daughter.
Uh-huh.
How did that go?
Yeah, that went well.
Yeah.
We worked well together. Yeah.
Good.
You go out it's different writing for television. When you write a novel, you're the classic alone at your keyboard, in your quiet room where you can close the door. For TV writing, you do what's called breaking the story, and you go into the writer's room. And with the whole staff writing crew, I think we had 7 full-time writers on our staff. There's a a whiteboard, a terrifyingly empty whiteboard. And for our show, it was divided into 6 acts. And by the end of, I don't know, a week, 2 weeks, you have brainstormed the outline of the episode. You'll have the A story, which is your main story, the crime, your B story, which is something going on in the lives of the characters, and then maybe even a C story, could be an arcing story from other episodes. So you have to pitch that to the showrunner, and he sits there like your major professor at your oral exams going, He then gives you notes. You take those notes and you modify your outline. You have to pitch that, and then once that's approved, you're sent a script, and you write the script, and you turn it in, and they change everything.
Yes, I've heard that.
And this is the beaver story.
Oh, I
you were
wanna hear the
asking
beaver
me
story.
about
Yeah.
the beaver story. For example, my daughter and I wrote an episode called The Dude in the Dam. And it was going to start out with somebody screaming along in an ATV. He hits something, he goes airborne, he comes crashing down into this puddle of slime. Leopard slugs put out slime because they're slugs. It's what slugs do. And if you add water to it, it will increase in volume by 99%. Big puddle of slug slime. They come crashing down into it, and then cue the music. The body is in there. That got changed to 2 kids walking through the woods, and they see a body in a beaver dam. Mainly it's cheaper. You know, as a writer, you don't think of that. You don't have to crash an ATV. You don't have to have the stunt man. You don't have to have the medics there in case the stunt, doesn't go well.
But you need the beaver dam.
You need the beaver. And we had the whole thing built. They dug we were filming on location. They dug this gully. We're going to cue the water. Water comes gushing down. And it was getting right up to the day we had to film this, and we didn't have a beaver.
You had the dam.
We had the dam. We had everything.
Did you make the dam, or was it a legit
Well, I didn't
dam?
make
No,
the
but
dam. No.
so it was a
No,
set.
it was a set. We built the dam.
It wasn't a real beaver dam.
It was not a real beaver dam.
Okay, so then you bring the beaver actor in, and what does he think of the dam?
Yeah, well, what happened is we couldn't get a beaver, so because they were all booked, and there are only 3 working beavers in Los Angeles. So,
You'd think in Canada they would have more beavers.
well, they could have.
You
I don't know.
can't
There
ship
may
a
have
Canadian
been,
beaver to
there
LA?
might have been a passport issue or something. I don't know. Anyway, at the last minute, there was a contract dispute or a personality conflict. Anyway, we got a beaver.
I want to know who the lawyer was for the beaver.
There you
the
go.
contract dispute.
And we were told this beaver was a bolter, that as soon as the wrangler opened, anytime you have animals on set or location, you have to have a wrangler. So we had a beaver wrangler and a slug wrangler. So we were told as soon as the wrangler opens the cage, this beaver is going to take off. So the shot, when you see this episode, it's called The Dude in the Dam. I think it was season 2.
Is it on YouTube?
Oh, it's out there somewhere.
Okay.
Anyway, it starts with this tight close-up of the beaver and then pans back, and she's giving a pretty good performance. She's moving around, she's, doing beaver things. Well, the only reason for that, because it turned out this was a very elderly beaver, and when the wrangler opened the cage, she just sat there. And we're all around because we think she's going to bolt, and of course she doesn't. So the reason she's giving this fairly good performance is we're all standing around with lettuce and carrots and things, and we're bribing the beaver.
So what did she think of the fake dam?
The beaver?
Yeah.
She was not impressed at all
Not
with
impressed.
anything that was going on that day.
Because, they're pretty good architects. They know what they're doing.
I guess so, but
Yeah.
we just brought her and plunked her down there, and we thought, she might get a nod for like best performance by a small furry mammal.
By a beaver.
Nothing.
So much fun. So you've had an amazing career so far. Is there anything that you haven't yet done, either in forensic anthropology or in writing or in TV, that you would like to try?
Oh,
Any real life mystery, forensic anthropology mystery that you would love to work on?
I always go blank when people ask me questions like that.
Sorry. But like I'm thinking Pompeii or
That's a good, I was just going to say, I started out as an archaeologist, as a bioarchaeologist. And I plan to spend my whole career looking at ancient skeletons that were dug up, from archaeological. There's a short story in a book called The Bone Collection. And there are 4, well, I'm not very good at short, so they're more like novellas. So there's 4 novellas in that. And one of them is called First Bones. And it's Tempe's origin story. And it's also my origin story, how I'm working away in my lab on archaeological material. And cops show up and want me to take a look at some modern, I remember that very first case I ever did, wanted me to take a look at a modern set of bones.
Oh, and then that was it, no looking back? You loved the modern bones?
I really liked it. I like archaeology. It's fascinating, but you're not going to impact anyone's life.
No.
Whereas
Not
when
in the same
you,
way.
in forensic work, if you tell a family you've identified their missing member, or when you testify in court, you are going to impact people's lives. And I really liked the relevance of that. So I retrained and sat for my boards. Because we testify in court, it's the only aspect of anthropology that has a board certification process. So, and then I never looked back. I've been doing the forensic aspect of it ever since.
Oh, it must have been a fascinating career.
It's
You worked on the 9/11.
I did work on the 9/11. I was there for way too long, yeah. And I've testified in the United Nations Tribunal on Genocide, and I've gone to Guatemala and helped recover some of the disappearados, the disappeared people down there. So yeah, there's the human rights aspect of it. There can be some more archaeological aspects. I worked in Montreal on the case of a woman named Jean Lebert, who died in, I think it was 1714. And in the 90s, she was proposed for sainthood. So if there are any remains, I guess a first step is to verify that you have the right remains. So I was asked to look at her remains. So yeah, it's had its interesting moments.
Wow. Anything you want to try in fiction that you haven't yet tried?
Oh, you mean other than a Temperance
Yeah, I
Brennan?
mean,
Who knows?
do you think you might do something other than Temperance Brennan,
Well,
or
I'm
are your
under-
fans just so demanding that
Well,
you
they
just
do,
have to keep...
and my publisher really does want Temperance Brennan.
Yes.
So I'm under contract for one more. So
Yeah.
when I finish that one, which is the one I'll be writing as soon as I get back home, we'll see.
Can you tell us a bit about what that one's about?
The Evil
next-
Bones one?
Yeah.
Well,
Well, other than the fact that it's about evil.
let me think. I think it's set in the Carolina. I don't remember. I have to give it.
You haven't written it yet, right?
I haven't written it yet.
Okay,
Yeah. So
fair enough. Which author or authors would you recommend to your fans who have read all your books and you don't write fast enough for them, and they want a good series, good books about forensic anthropologists?
Oh, about
who
forensic
would you recommend?
anthropology. Gosh, I don't know. There aren't that many, are there?
I don't think there are.
Fictional.
That's why I was hoping you might have some.
There are some that are set more in the realm of forensics than but not necessarily anthropology. I'm really enjoying an author named Tana French.
Oh, I love Tana French.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
Irish, I'm
Yes.
pretty sure.
Yes.
And I like Michael Connolly. I think his stuff's real. I like the darker. I like Joe Nesbo, who's, what
Oh,
is he?
super dark.
Norwegian, Swedish? He's
I think he's Norwegian.
somewhere
He's
over
super
there where
dark.
it's really cold.
Yeah.
Who else am I reading right now? Yeah, so Ian Rankin, who's a Scot. I like
Yeah.
his Rebus character.
But they're not really forensic people. There's not a lot of forensic
True.
stuff. You have an expertise that isn't, widely, not very many people have that, to be able to write about it. So it's kind of interesting. It makes you unique. We have one more thing I want to ask you, and then I think we have to go to the audience. Does AI worry you? And
No.
I was going to say, would it be a different answer from the writer versus the forensic anthropologist? But you're saying no, it doesn't
It
worry
just
you.
doesn't worry me.
No, eh?
No.
No.
Eh? Eh?
No.
I'm Canadian.
I'm Canadian. Yeah, for sure. Why doesn't it worry you at all?
I don't know. I just don't think from the point of view of a writer, writing fiction, I don't think you're ever going to get that human element in there, that artistic element in there, that AI might be able to crank out a decent storyline, but I just don't think it's going to have the feeling.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. And in terms of anthropology, forensic anthropology, do you think AI is going to blow things wide open?
You know, I haven't really,
You don't know?
I don't know.
Remains to be seen. It's going to be interesting to see what AI does to everything.